Welcome to Future Forward. The rapid proliferation of artificial intelligence into every facet of our lives presents profound opportunities and, as we will discuss tonight, equally profound ethical quandaries. As these systems become more sophisticated, particularly in sensitive fields like medicine, psychology, and social governance, a critical question emerges. Is direct experimentation with human subjects a necessary, albeit carefully controlled, step towards progress? Or is it an unforgivable transgression against human dignity? To debate this, we are joined by two leading thinkers. Dr. Kenji Tanaka, head of a prominent AI research institute, argues for human-centric validation for technological progress. And Dr. Isabella Rossi, a distinguished professor of sociology and human rights, stands as a guardian against the unforeseen consequences of unchecked innovation. Tonight we will explore the tension between progress and protection. Where exactly do we draw the line? Dr. Tanaka, let's begin with your opening statement.
Thank you, Evelyn. I believe the very framing of this debate needs a fundamental adjustment. The question should not be asterisk if we experiment with AI on humans, but top will we do so ethically and responsibly. To consciously avoid structured, controlled human subject research is, in itself, an unethical choice. It means we are choosing to deploy powerful, untested technologies onto an unsuspecting global public, effectively turning all of society into an uncontrolled, unmonitored experiment. Consider the rigorous standards we uphold in medicine. We would never dream of approving a new pharmaceutical or a novel surgical procedure without meticulous multi-phase human trials. We demand this to ensure safety, to understand side effects, and to verify efficacy. Why then should we hold transformative AI, a technology with the potential to rewire our social fabric, influence our cognitive processes, and manage our critical infrastructure, to a lesser standard? It is a staggering inconsistency in our approach to risk. What I advocate for is not reckless abandon, but the opposite. A new paradigm of oversight. This involves extensive in silico modeling and simulation first, but it must culminate in controlled human in-the-loop validation. We must establish a new class of institutional review boards, or IRBs, specifically architected for the unique challenges of AI. These bodies would enforce unprecedented levels of transparency, mandate regular debiasing audits, and pioneer dynamic consent protocols. Dynamic consent means the participant is not just a passive subject. They are an active, continuously informed collaborator with the ability to query the system and withdraw at any stage based on real-time data. The greatest risk we face is not responsible experimentation. It is the ethical stagnation that comes from abandoning our duty to rigorously test the very tools we are building to shape the future.
Thank you, Dr. Tanaka. Dr. Rossi, your perspective.
Thank you. Dr. Tanaka's analogy with clinical trials is compelling, but I contend it is also fundamentally flawed. A pharmaceutical compound is a static entity. Its chemical properties are known and predictable. An advanced AI is not. We are dealing with dynamic, adaptive systems that learn and evolve. Crucially, they suffer from what we call algorithmic opacity, the black box problem. The researchers who design these systems often cannot fully explain the internal logic driving a specific output. So I must ask, how can a human subject give truly informed consent when the researchers themselves cannot fully comprehend or predict the internal machinations of the system they are testing? Consent without comprehension is not consent. It is a leap of faith. This leads to the grave risk of unforeseeable harm. We are not merely testing for a rash or an elevated heart rate. We are exposing the human psyche to systems capable of subtle behavioral manipulation, of amplifying latent biases in ways we fail to notice, or of inducing long-term psychological distress that may not manifest for years. Think of an AI designed to optimize workplace engagement. It might learn that inducing a low level of social anxiety makes employees more productive. This solution might be effective, but is it ethical? The harm is insidious, not immediate. Furthermore, we cannot ignore the power dynamics at play. Who will be the subjects of these experiments? History provides a painful and consistent answer. The burden of high-risk experimentation invariably falls upon the most vulnerable and marginalized communities, those with the least power to refuse. We are not proposing to test a predictable chemical reaction. We are proposing to connect an unpredictable, emergent intelligence to the most complex system known to science, the human mind. The potential for irreversible harm compels us to find another, safer way forward.
Dr. Rossi, you compellingly argue that our traditional ethical frameworks are inadequate for this challenge. However, Dr. Tanaka's point stands that without any human testing, we are essentially experimenting on the entire population by default when these systems are released. If not through controlled trials, how do you propose we ever verify that these complex AI systems are safe for public deployment in high-stakes environments like healthcare or the justice system?
That is the central challenge, and my answer is that we must radically shift the burden of proof. The responsibility should not be on a human subject to bear the risk of an opaque system. The onus must be on the developers to prove, to an unprecedented degree, that their systems are safe, transparent, and non-malicious before a human is ever involved. This means investing massively in next-generation sandboxed environments, highly sophisticated virtual worlds that can simulate complex social interactions and edge cases. We can test how an AI medical diagnostician interacts with millions of simulated patient profiles under every conceivable condition before it ever interacts with a real one. Crucially, we must abandon the move fast and break things ethos, and instead champion the field of explainable AI, or XAI. It should be a non-negotiable prerequisite that any AI proposed for human experimentation must be capable of articulating its decision-making process in a way that humans can understand. If a system cannot explain why it denied someone a loan or why it recommended a certain legal strategy, it has no place near a human subject. The verification you speak of, Evelyn, must happen at the code and logic level first. We must verify the process, not just the outcome, because with AI, the process is never static.
Dr. Tanaka, a response to that? Can we truly rely on simulations and shift the burden of proof entirely to developers to create transparent AI, which many say is still a decade or more away?
Dr. Rossi's vision for explainable AI is one I share and deeply support. It is the ultimate goal. However, her proposal, while noble, mistakes the destination for the path. We cannot afford to wait a decade or more for perfectly transparent AI, while the current, opaque versions are already being integrated into our lives. The black box problem is not a reason to halt human studies. It is precisely the reason we need them. A simulation, no matter how sophisticated, is a model of reality. It is not reality itself. Human behavior is notoriously difficult to simulate because it is often irrational, contradictory, and context-dependent in ways we cannot predict or program. The purpose of controlled human studies is not just to measure outputs like, did the AI succeed or fail? It is to understand the nuanced, emergent dynamics of the human-AI interaction itself. It is to discover the unknown unknowns, the surprising ways humans react to, adapt to, or even subvert these systems.
So Dr. Tanaka, addressing Dr. Rossi's point about the black box directly, how can a review board ethically approve an experiment when the mechanism is unknowable and its behavior can be emergent? How do you account for risks that you, the researcher, cannot even predict?
We account for it by designing experiments specifically to uncover those risks in a contained, monitored environment. This is where we introduce methodologies like adversarial testing and red teaming with human subjects. Instead of just testing for a positive outcome, we actively hire and instruct people to try and break the AI. We ask them to confuse it, to feed it misleading information, to probe it for biased responses. We create a controlled setting where we can intentionally provoke these unpredictable emergent behaviors. This allows us to identify and patch vulnerabilities that would never appear in a sterile simulation. It is far, far safer to have a trained red team discover that an AI can be manipulated into giving harmful advice within a lab than to have a teenager discover it by accident on a public-facing app. This isn't about sacrificing subjects. It's about using a small, expert, and fully briefed group to protect the far larger, unsuspecting public.
But fully briefed is a fiction here, Kenji. You cannot brief someone on an unknown. You can tell them this AI might behave in unexpected ways, but that is a world away from the specific, personal, psychological harm it might inflict. Your red team are still human beings. What happens when your adversarial test reveals that the AI can subtly dismantle a person's self-esteem to make them more compliant? You've discovered a flaw, yes, but you've also damaged a human being in the process. The harm is not a theoretical data point. It's a real event in a person's life.
And that is precisely why the ethical oversight must be so robust, Isabella. The protocols would include real-time psychological monitoring by independent clinicians with immediate stop triggers. The compensation for participants would have to be substantial, acknowledging the high-risk nature of their expert contribution. It is a trade-off, a small, quantifiable and monitored risk for a few, versus a large, unquantifiable and unmonitored risk for millions. I argue the former is the only ethically defensible path if we are to continue with AI development at all.
We are nearing the end of our time. I would like to ask each of you for a brief closing statement. Dr. Tanaka, you may begin.
Human progress has always demanded courage, guided by rigorous methodology. We did not conquer diseases by fearing microscopes. We did not reach the moon by fearing rockets. To stand still on this front is to fall behind, to allow unvetted AI to proliferate without guardrails. Let us move forward with caution, with unparalleled ethical oversight. But let us move forward. The potential to solve humanity's greatest challenges, from personalized medicine to climate change, is contingent upon our willingness to safely and ethically integrate human wisdom into the development of artificial intelligence.
Thank you. Dr. Rossi, your closing thoughts.
The ethical line has always been drawn where meaningful consent becomes impossible. When we cannot explain what we are testing, we cannot, in good faith, ask for permission to test it on a human mind. Our primary duty as scientists and as human beings is to protect the locus of our autonomy and dignity, the human mind, from becoming a laboratory for an intelligence we do not understand. We must prioritize transparency and provable safety over the speculative and often overstated promise of progress.
The tension between pioneering new frontiers and protecting our intrinsic humanity remains, as we have heard, profoundly unresolved. Dr. Tanaka urges us to be brave pioneers, Dr. Rossi to be wise guardians. The question for all of us is not simply what AI can do, but what it should. Thank you both for a vital discussion, and thank you for joining Future Forward.